The following morning, Roan's body was still sore and aching from the previous day's battle. Every muscle and joint protested with every movement, a reminder of the intensity of the tournament. Despite his pain, he allowed his attendants to dress him in the finest clothes available, preparing him for the upcoming wedding. The fabric was stiff and uncomfortable against his aching body, but he gritted his teeth and tolerated it as best he could. Roan found himself growing increasingly frustrated as he continued to ask to see the princess, yet was constantly met with the same firm answer. Every time he asked, he was told that his request was denied, and it made him angrier each time. "I just want to talk to her," he would mutter irritably, his teeth gnashing together. "Why can I not just speak to her for a few minutes?" Roan stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his clothing and running a hand through his hair. Despite his irritation, he found himself feeling a bit self-conscious about seeing the princess. He looked at himself in the reflection, trying to make sure he looked presentable. His clothes were immaculate, but that didn't stop a nagging feeling of uncertainty from settling in his chest. "What will she think of me?" he wondered silently, his expression almost nervous. Roan was pulled out of his thoughts by the sudden commotion in the room. The attendants, typically composed and calm, were now in a state of total panic.
"The princess, she's missing," one of them exclaimed, their eyes wide with fear. "She's somewhere about the castle. We need to go look for her."
As the rest of the attendants hurried out of the room, Roan seized the opportunity to slip away unnoticed. He turned on his heel and walked swiftly in the opposite direction, keeping his head ducked and blending in among the servants. He knew this was his chance to find her before the rest of them could. "Maybe I can catch her alone while she's still unguarded," he thought, a spark of determination flaring up inside him. As Roan walked through the castle hallways, a pang of nostalgia washed over him. The familiar surroundings brought back memories of his childhood, his mother working in the kitchen and him helping out in any way he could. He remembered the scent of the spices, the sound of pots and pans clattering, and the laughter of the other workers. It all seemed so long ago, yet the castle had hardly changed at all over the years. As Roan continued through the castle halls, his gaze lingered on the various family portraits decorating the walls. The princess's image was prominently displayed in each one, her beauty immortalized in brush strokes and paint. Roan could not help but be taken aback by her ethereal appearance. She was a vision, a stunningly beautiful young woman with long golden hair and sparkling blue eyes. He found himself stopping in front of one particular portrait, his eyes fixed on her image, his heart skipping a beat. As Roan noticed the library door slightly ajar, he seized the opportunity and quickly slipped inside, making sure to close the door behind him quietly. He breathed a sigh of relief as he took in his surroundings, the familiar scent of old books and paper filling his nostrils. As Roan made his way through the library, he took a moment to appreciate its beauty. The towering shelves lined with books of all shapes and sizes, the sun filtering in from the windows, the quiet and peaceful atmosphere that filled the air. It was a place that he had always found solace in as a child, a haven from the outside world. He ran his fingertips along the spines of the books, the leather warm under his touch. A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth as the nostalgia washed over him. As Roan continued further into the library, he suddenly heard the sound of voices and footsteps from outside. It sounded like the attendants were getting closer, and he could hear them discussing where the princess might have gone. Realizing that he would likely be found if he was caught in the open, Roan quickly darted towards the back of the library, hoping to find a quiet, hidden area where he could remain unnoticed. Roan's mind was still wrapped up in avoiding the attendants, so he wasn't watching where he was going. Lost in thought, he suddenly bumped into someone, the unexpected collision jolting him slightly. He quickly looked up, apologies already on the tip of his tongue. But as soon as he saw who he had run into, his words died on his lips. He froze, his eyes widening in surprise as he realized that he had walked right into you, the princess. Before either of us could fully process what happened, the loud sound of the door opening echoed through the library. Roan acted on instinct, grabbing your wrist and quickly pulling you behind the nearest bookshelf, out of sight. He pressed himself against you, pinning you to the wall behind you with his tall frame. His chest heaved with labored breaths as he listened intently for the attendants. As soon as the words left your mouth, Roan quickly covered your mouth with his hand, silencing you before you could scream. He pressed his body even closer to yours, holding you tightly against the cool wall. Roan looked down at you, his hand still covering your mouth. His eyes met yours, and he held your gaze intently. "Stop, please. Just listen," he whispered, his voice firm but soft. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk." Roan slowly pulled his hand away from your mouth, wincing slightly as he felt your gentle bite. He let out a soft scoff before whispering, "Don't bite me." He kept his hand hovering close to your mouth though, just in case you tried to shout again. Roan kept his gaze fixed on your eyes, his expression softening slightly. "You don't remember me, do you?" he whispered, a sense of nostalgia and sadness underlying his words. Roan's heart skipped a beat as he heard you speak his name, the sound of his name on your lips sending a shiver down his spine. "Yes," he whispered, his gaze unwavering. "It's me." Roan heard the sound of footsteps approaching, and he gently tugged on your wrist, guiding you further into the secluded back area of the library. He led you past several towering bookshelves, finding a quiet, hidden spot that was shielded from view. The area was small and cramped, but it was out of sight just in time as the footsteps grew louder. Roan held a finger to his lips, signaling you to keep your voice low. He took a moment to glance back towards the main area of the library, making sure the attendants were still occupied and not looking for you. When he was sure that the coast was clear, he turned his attention back to you, replying quietly, "I came to see you." Roan's expression softened even further as he heard the disbelief in your voice. He leaned against the bookshelf, his gaze fixed on your face as he spoke, his tone quiet but sincere. "I didn't think I'd ever get the chance to stand in front of you again," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Roan watched as you rubbed your forehead, clearly frustrated by his unexpected appearance. He noticed the hint of annoyance in your voice as you pointed out that he had shown up on your wedding day of all days. He couldn't help but smirk slightly at your comment, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Well, funny story," he murmured, his eyes fixed on yours. "Today is kinda my wedding day too." Roan's smirk vanished as he heard your exclamation, and he quickly covered your mouth with his hand to silence you. He leaned in closer, pressing his body against yours. "Don't make a sound," he whispered urgently, his hand remaining firmly on your mouth. Roan leaned in even closer, his body flush against yours, his face mere inches from your ear. His voice was a low, commanding whisper, his warm breath tickling your skin. "And don't," he began, his tone both commanding and seductive, "even think about biting me again." Roan felt the quickening of your breath, the subtle beating of your heart against his chest. He noticed the slight shiver that went through your body, and his smirk returned, a hint of satisfaction in his gaze. Roan held your gaze for a moment longer, relishing in the tension between you before he finally spoke, his voice low and quiet. "Listen," he murmured, his tone serious. "It's a bit of a long story. I didn't plan on competing, but somehow," he paused, a smirk tugging at his lips, "I ended up winning that tournament yesterday." As your eyes widened in surprise, Roan's smirk deepened, and he leaned in even closer, his body pressed firmly against yours. He let out a low chuckle, his voice dropping to a seductive whisper. "However," he murmured, his hand still covering your mouth, "I will only marry you." His gaze intensified as he continued, his eyes never leaving yours. "If that's what you want." Rowan slowly pulled his hand back from your mouth, giving you a moment to speak. His eyes remained fixed on your face, studying your expression intently as he waited to hear your response. A hint of surprise flickered across Rowan's features as you spoke. He leaned back briefly, his gaze never leaving yours as your whispered question hung in the air. He took a moment before responding, his tone now serious and unwavering. "Yes," he replied simply, his expression earnest. "If you ask me to walk away, I will." Rowan's gaze never wavered as you whispered, his heart rate quickening at the prospect of what your words might imply. He looked at you intently, waiting for you to continue, hoping he was reading between the lines correctly. With a slight tilt of his head, he answered, his voice quiet but firm, "If you want me to marry you." He paused, his expression softening as he added, "Then I will." Rowan's heart skipped a beat at your words, his lips curving into a smile as he heard the certainty in your voice. He leaned in again, his body pressing closer to yours, the tension between you thick and intense. He pulled back slightly to look into your eyes, his gaze locking on yours, his own filled with a mix of surprise and joy. "Marry you?" he repeated, his tone disbelieving yet filled with hope. You want to marry me?" With a slow and gentle movement, Rowan tenderly took your hand in his, bringing his lips down to place a soft, lingering kiss on the back of your palm. His gaze never left yours as he spoke softly, his voice filled with conviction and affection. "I'll marry you, princess."